It is now my pleasure to introduce to you, also from the Center of Leave No Trace Center of Outdoor Ethics, Andrew Leary. Andrew is the National Outreach Manager and runs and manages the Leave No Trace for Kids program, which is a national youth initiative that is particularly pertinent to Scouts. So, Andrew, welcome aboard.
Well, thanks, Scott, and I'm glad to be here with you all at the 2020 National Outdoor Ethics Conference. Again, my name's Andrew Leary, for those of you who don't know me, and as the National Outreach Manager at the Center, I manage the curriculum and direction of the Leave No Trace for Every Kid initiative. Since 2015, the Center has really expanded our youth education program to engage young people in what it means to be responsible and caring for the outdoor experience. I'm going to spend a little time telling you about all of the resources that you can use to reach Scouts with Leave No Trace. Knowing the principles by heart or the hand signals are definitely a great start, but there's so much more opportunity to help Scouts develop their own outdoor ethic. Peak and Bigfoot's Playbook are two of our most recognizable curriculum resources. In the last year, we've developed an entire library of other curricula, staff training, and program quality resources, as well as some significant updates to our online learning courses that many of you are probably familiar with. I'll also tell you a bit more about the Leave No Trace Youth Program Accreditation. But before I go into describing those, I'd like to first give you my perspective on why Leave No Trace education is so critical for young people. The Center and BSA use training and education to support Leave No Trace's mission and ensure that all Scouts and adult volunteers, for that matter, have the skills to leave places as good or better than they found them. What's so critical is recognizing what is at the heart of those learning experiences that we call training. A question that I just pose out loud to everyone to consider is, how do Scouts develop values like responsibility, caring, and respect? Well, I'm going to share with you my perspective as a former academic who studied youth development for many years. I think it's actually quite simple. Scouts talk about these values. Adult volunteers, as well as the Scouts' peers, teach about these values. We give Scouts the opportunity to practice and model what it means to be responsible, respectful, and caring. And in the end, we celebrate and recognize those achievements related to those values. So the question that I put out here to all of you is, how do Scouts develop their stewardship ethic? It turns out they do it in the exact same manner, because Leave No Trace is a values program. It's about responsibility, it's about respect, it's about caring, and not only for the outdoors and the natural world in an ecological sense, but also about the outdoor experience that everyone who steps outside. We talk about Leave No Trace. We teach Scouts about Leave No Trace. We give Scouts the opportunity to practice and model Leave No Trace. And finally, we celebrate and recognize Leave No Trace. Then we repeat. We repeat these simple steps over and over again. These methods are most useful when they happen frequently. I want to share a quick story with you from my days as a camp director at a YMCA residential camp in Michigan. I used to get phone calls from parents after their kid arrived home from a 2-week experience at our camp. And I'd frequently hear from those parents that they couldn't believe that their child, unprompted, would clear the dinner table and do the dishes after a meal. They were just blown away. And back then, as a young camp director, I think I just chalked it up to, I'm really glad camp has a positive experience on your kid. I hope they can make it back next year. But as I began doing more youth development work and research in grad school, I realized that there was a reason why these kids were taking these skills back home with them. And it had to do with our expectation, the camp's expectation around the dining hall, which is the image that you see in front of you, or a representation of that image in front of you. Every day, 3 times a day at our camp, campers would eat with their cabin unit in the dining hall. And every day, 3 times a day, pairs of campers were responsible for setting that table and cleaning up after the meal. And during the meal, since we were a family style of dining, if food ran out at the table, somebody would go refill the bowl or the tray for the entire table. Not only did campers participate in these responsibilities, but they also saw them being modeled by their peers and staff members every day, 3 times a day. Now imagine if our camp only required these dining hall responsibilities during the first meal on the first day of camp, or if we only required these responsibilities when certain types of food were served. Do you think that our campers would have gotten enough practice and experience to bring these values home with them? No, I don't think so either. And the same thing can be said about Leave No Trace. Regular Leave No Trace learning and practice will lead to young people developing an outdoor ethic that carries throughout adolescence and into their adulthood. Teaching values like responsibility, respect, and caring through this lens of Leave No Trace should be fun and engaging. And that's really what our library of curriculum and education resources set out to provide, a fun and engaging way to learn about Leave No Trace and the 7 principles. These resources will help with adventure and rank advancement requirements as well, so something very specific to the scouting experience. So let's take a closer look at some of these resources. Bigfoot's Playbook, if you're not familiar with it, has anchored itself as one of our most popular resources for teaching Leave No Trace. This curriculum uses experiential education as its foundation and takes a much deeper exploration into the ideas behind the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. There are a whole lot of resources that go along with this backpack-sized book that you're seeing on your screen, including access to all of the downloadable Leave No Trace game cards and prompts and materials, so that you don't have to recreate those. The book also contains debrief questions and prompts for each of the 38 activities to help get you started. Far and away, the debrief is the most important aspect of all of these activities. This is where you, as an educator, can really tease out that why. Ben talked about research studies that have shown that the why helps people understand Leave No Trace more and act on it and commit to it more. So we can do the same thing with young people. Let's ask those open-ended questions. Why does Leave No Trace matter? How is it relevant to your life here or your life back home? Bigfoot's Playbook is also a great resource to use with Boy Scouts who may be looking to practice group facilitation skills for their peers or working with younger Scouts. We also know that many of the activities in Bigfoot's Playbook can help support Scouts as they earn various adventure and rank advancements. What you're seeing on your screen is a resource that we created from a 2018 research collaboration between the Center and the Outdoor Ethics Task Force to take a look at Bigfoot Playbook and its effectiveness in BSA camp settings. The green boxes on the screen include the names of the activities from Bigfoot's Playbook that help support that specific adventure or rank advancement opportunity. And I think having this as a guide, if you're unsure about how to start using Leave No Trace or what are the things you can do in addition to the great resources that the BSA provides, this is something that could really help. And so a great resource and something that we hope that you can continue to use. The PEAK program is still very popular Leave No Trace resource as well. And if you're unfamiliar, the PEAK pack contains 6 activities that include all of the resources that you'll need to run the activity, including the prompts that you can read out loud to your group. There's a helpful video that goes along with the PEAK pack that is now housed on the Center's YouTube channel. In 2019, the PEAK pack got an updated look and feel with everything fitting nicely into one binder sized resource. We still have the 4 additional PEAK pack add-on modules. So altogether, 10 great activities that contribute to the PEAK program. I get questions from time to time about what's the difference between PEAK and Bigfoot's Playbook. And to me, PEAK is the curriculum resource that anybody can use, regardless if you just learned Leave No Trace last week or it's been part of your life for many years. Since everything is effectively scripted for you in PEAK, including the debrief, you can be a novice group facilitator and find lots of success with this resource. Bigfoot's Playbook is also easy and simple to use by anybody, but those who have more intermediate facilitation skills or perhaps more familiar with experiential education will definitely see the most success with Scouts. All right, let's transition to our online learning resources. You know, this whole year has been really interesting to see how virtual learning spaces have given so much more access to people who otherwise would not be able to learn about Leave No Trace. And early in 2020, before the pandemic set in, both of our primary online youth education resources received some significant updates that have really taken these courses to the next level. What was formerly known as the Online Awareness course now has a new name and a refreshed feel to it. We now call it Leave No Trace, Take Action to Protect the Outdoors. And it's our 30 to 45-minute online learning course that adults and youth older than 12 will find to be useful. New features of the course include the ability to take a look at different regions of the United States through the lens of Leave No Trace. We've also replaced the quiz with a pledge that allows participants to join the Leave No Trace movement and begin making a difference in their community. Pledge mechanisms are really effective ways to reach people in short, concise messaging. This is a resource for anyone who's unfamiliar with the 7 principles or the work of the center. There's still a principal certificate that participants can receive once they complete the entire course, and that includes the pledge. In this new course, your certificate is available for an instant download after you complete the course, instead of having it sent to your email. Peak Online also received some updates in early 2020. It's still the great, highly interactive online course meant for 8 to 12-year-olds to engage with independently. So we've woven in some of the videos from our Leave No Trace Subaru teams to help bring more context to the specific topic or activity. And there's still a principal certificate that's available once a participant successfully completes the online learning course. A resource that you may be less familiar with is the Social Media and Stewardship curriculum. This is a pretty new resource in the last year or so, and this free resource that you can find on the center's website takes Leave No Trace education into realms where traditional environmental education and outdoor education have previously been discouraged or prohibited. And I'm talking about using smartphone technology and social media apps to learn about Leave No Trace. Ben gave us a great glimpse into some of the issues potentially surrounding social media technology and the outdoors. But over the last few years, this intersection of the outdoors and social media has grown from an emerging topic to being very mainstream. And while there are issues potentially with the outdoors and social media and how people use that, there are also opportunities to turn it into a tool for understanding and learning. What I think is incredible is there was research from 2018 from the Pew Research Center sharing data that 95% of American teenagers have access to smartphones. And that data is aggregated across demographics like ethnicity, household income, parent level of education, and much more. 95% of teenagers have access to smartphones. And on top of that, today's American teenagers like to spend time on their phones, and in particular on social media apps like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. And what if there was a way to use smartphone technology and social media content to learn what stewardship and Leave No Trace can mean in someone's life? Well, that's what this curriculum sets out to do. To be clear, this curriculum is not itself a smartphone app. It's merely using smartphone technology and social media apps that are already available. The curriculum does, however, give a lot of resources to the adult volunteer or educator who's going to be facilitating any one of the many activities inside. Boiled down, this is a social media literacy course taught through the lens of Leave No Trace. And some of you may be thinking that kids spend too much time on their phones today, and the need for phone-free outdoor engagement is desirable, or we'd like to have that in our young people's lives. And I completely agree with you. But I also believe that the notion of prohibiting technology and the outdoors is just not something that will endure. Today's young people who are discovering the outdoors for the first time, be it in their younger years, in their teens, or in their 20s, technology is a part of everything that they do. And so it's going to be a part of the outdoors. So love it or hate it, smartphone devices and social media are probably here to stay for today's scouts as they enter into adulthood. So why don't we use that as an opportunity? Let's use media literacy as a tool to engage scouts in what it means to leave no trace. And media literacy, when it comes down to it, is a framework that builds an understanding of the role media plays in society, including essential skills of inquiry and self-expression. So one of the things this curriculum does is presents young people with an opportunity to come to their own conclusions about what is the power of technology and social media to help promote stewardship, and what are things that are perhaps going on behavior-wise or technology-wise that are going against that idea of promoting stewardship and what it means to leave no trace. That's what this curriculum explores. Another exciting resource that utilizes something that many of today's young people still adore is our LEGO plus Leave No Trace curriculum. There are 18 activities which can be done independently by a scout or gently facilitated by an adult leader. And they give a young person an opportunity to demonstrate their understanding and interpretation of Leave No Trace concepts by building with Legos. I'm a personal fan of Legos, and when Josh Lamoth and I were talking a few years ago about Lego scenes that he had built to help teach the 7 principles, I instantly wanted to take that idea and turn it into something that the entire Leave No Trace community could benefit from. So Josh, thank you for that inspiration. This curriculum is free. Check it out at lnt.org. And then the final resource I wanted to share with you is about the Leave No Trace Youth Program Accreditation. This program is a process that helps councils and camp programs align their education efforts to the center's 11 standards and best practices for youth programs. As Dana mentioned earlier, both Philmont and the Summit are pursuing the accreditation right now. Last year, we actually started promoting a little friendly competition to see which iconic high adventure base would become the first fully accredited BSA program. Currently, it's neck and neck, and as they both near the finish line, I just want to say it's so great for the folks at both programs who have been putting in the time to complete this accreditation and see it through from start to beginning. Start to end. And really, once they've both achieved this accreditation, both adventure bases are aligning their Leave No Trace education delivery with standards and best practices that demonstrate what it means to offer the highest quality Leave No Trace programming possible. The accreditation is not just for high adventure bases, though. Although Sea Base and Northern Tier, I think you're primed to be next. But no, the accreditation is very much for councils, their day camps, and their overnight camp programs as well. There are some key features that set this program apart from other accreditation resources that are out there. You'll get access to assessment and evaluation tools to enhance your program's effectiveness when it comes to teaching Leave No Trace. Program quality goes into that as well. Badge and rank advancement programs count toward fulfillment of certain elective standards. So primed for the scout audience and the scout environment. The other key feature of this accreditation is that it requires input from youth participants themselves. So their voice is needed to complete some of the requirements. Involving young people in the accreditation process is something that will absolutely help shape the culture for Leave No Trace education in your council. The accreditation aligns with several NCAP standards as well, and working through the 11 Leave No Trace accreditation standards will help your program fulfill these NCAP requirements that you're seeing on the screen. An added benefit for any program that's seeking Leave No Trace and NCAP recognition. This is also a resource that councils can really leverage so that all of their camps have access to begin the accreditation process as well. In the example on the screen, a council can invest in the accreditation materials and then share those materials out with their specific camps. Each camp will be responsible for pursuing the accreditation process individually. The council can also pursue becoming a Leave No Trace accredited council, but I think really what this model allows is a much more equitable entry point for scout programs to start using best practices and standards to enhance their program quality and delivery. If you have more questions about how this council to camp model might work for your specific area, please don't hesitate to reach out to me after the conference. Just some final thoughts. Remember, Leave No Trace values like responsibility, respect, and caring for the outdoor experience, they take time. Celebrating and recognizing Scouts' achievements is a wonderful way to acknowledge all the conversations and opportunities that actually put Leave No Trace into practice. But at the heart of youth development, it's going to be those conversations and opportunities for practice that are going to be the most meaningful in terms of shaping a young person's outdoor ethic. I hope you found inspiration in all of these resources. Please check them out at lnt.org if you want to learn any more or access any of the resources. And of course, always feel free to reach out to me at the center if you have any questions. And with that, I just wanted to say big thank you to the entire BSA community for all the work that you do to bring Leave No Trace education to the hearts and minds of the young people that you get to interact with. You all are leading the charge in terms of a volume of young people who get to experience Leave No Trace on a regular basis throughout all of your programs. So big thank you on behalf of the entire youth team at Leave No Trace. And thanks for attending the session. And Scott, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, Andrew, thank you so much. It's always great to hear about the great, exciting programs that have, developed for youth. And, that is certainly our focus. At this time, I would love to bring back Andrew, Ben, and Dana, and we'll take questions for about 5 minutes before we take another break. First one up is, what is the cost for a council or camp to work on the LNT accreditation?
Sure.
It's a tough year for expensive new programs.
Absolutely. So the cost for the accreditation program is $350. So in that council to camp model that we just explored, if a council invests the resources into that accreditation, then their camps that are under their umbrella can also use that accreditation resource in pursuit of the accreditation process themselves.
And Andrew, is that a one-time fee or is that a yearly?
There's a one-time fee for the materials themselves, and then a program can take as long as they'd like to go through the accreditation, essentially building up the resources that they need to submit the accreditation portfolio to our team. And then once a program becomes fully accredited, so they've worked with our staff, there's a staff liaison from Leave No Trace that's assigned to them. Once they become fully accredited, there is an annual accreditation fee cost of $100 per year. But that goes toward that liaison that's working with you, the review of your annual report that you provide. So it's a 4-year accreditation and can really do a lot for so many programs in the BSA.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Next one is also for you. Are there programs for 12 to 21-year-old youth?
Yeah, teenagers are a really interesting population to work with when it comes to teaching Leave No Trace. And one of the programs that I featured was the social media and stewardship curriculum. Again, highly relevant in today's adolescent life, having the hardware and knowing the software. We also have a curriculum called the teen curriculum that you can find at lnt.org. You can find more info there. So there are definitely ways to teach Leave No Trace and engage older adolescents. I'd say, putting my former camp director hat on, one of the best ways to engage someone in Leave No Trace is give them the opportunity to teach it to other people. Because when you become the teacher, you learn a lot about the subject. You go much deeper, perhaps, than you will give to the group or to the peers that you're explaining it to. So give people the opportunity to facilitate and learn what it means to teach somebody Leave No Trace. That's probably the best way that someone can learn it.
Actually, this next question is for Dana and Ben, and it's actually asking about one of your long-term partners, Subaru. All of the discounts that have been offered to those with Leave No Trace memberships, but wondering why we don't see more of Leave No Trace advertised in like their Drive magazine or in their public outreaches? You know, we see them branded when we go to big things that have the traveling trainers there and stuff, and we know they do so much for Leave No Trace as an organization, but you know, we don't see them in their national advertising mention Leave No Trace. We don't see it in their Drive magazine, for example. Any way to get them to help promote us a little further?
Well, I would say that they have highlighted Leave No Trace a number of times in that Drive magazine. They have featured Leave No Trace in other kind of various ways with advertising, and it's always competitive. You know, those spaces are so competitive with content and with visuals, and most of the time it is all about Subaru and whatever their very clear marketing focus is at that time. So we have been working on them and pushing them over the years to include more Leave No Trace whenever appropriate and possible. And of course, we feel like it's always appropriate and possible. But you know, it doesn't hurt for you folks to write and let them know you'd like to see more prominent Leave No Trace. I mean, they're proud of our partnership. It's been a 20-year partnership. We're proud of the partnership, but there's still a ton of opportunity, and they could be promoting it and doing more. And again, it's a lot. They've been going through a lot of changes in just within the last year, and they're as any big corporation, they're constantly shifting and evolving and looking at different ways to market. But they've stuck with us, and we are proud of that partnership. But it doesn't hurt to hear from you and from the public that you want to see that more. So I would encourage you or anyone in a very positive way to reach out to them and tell them you value Leave No Trace, you love the partnership, you'd love to see more of it.
Thank you, Dana. I have one from, let me find it here. This is actually from one of our committee members. He wanted to ask if social media tends to drive people to popular locations, for example, Horseshoe Bend, or are they seeing an overall increase in social media-driven visitation across the park, even in remote areas?
It's a good question. I don't know that we have the definitive data source on that. We certainly are seeing popular locations receiving significant impacts as a result of social media. And I can tell you this, every 2 years we survey our federal and state land management partners on trends, what they're seeing, what's happening, impacts, what's working, what's not working. And we added in 2018 a couple of questions specifically about social media. 25% of the respondents at that time indicated that they were seeing an increase in visitation due to social media. Another 25% indicated that they were seeing increased impacts as a result of social media. So I don't know that we yet have the data to say it's predominantly impacting popular areas like the Horseshoe Bends of the world, or it's more remote areas. I think right now, at least based on what I'm hearing from our land management partners nationally, we're seeing it in both of those areas. We're seeing people who are accessing more remote locations because they found out about it on social media. And then obviously those iconic shots that people see on Instagram and Twitter and other channels, they want to go visit those as well. So I would, if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say it's a pretty even distribution in terms of where people are headed as a result of social media.
Well, Ben, Dana, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules and all that you're doing to, again, continue the great support that you give the scouting organization and all the hard work that is doing such great improvements to our outdoor spaces.